everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I guess it's not going to let me do it that way. I'm still learning with this thing. Oh my goodness. So, hi guys. I am pumped. I'm going to do a talk today about this Chiron in Aries. It's all the rage. It's the talk of the town right now. So we're going to talk about it as well. And I do apologize. My notes are in front of me, but I'm actually holding the phone. I'm going to get my life together on this one of these days. But for today, I'm going to be holding it and kind of looking here, and I apologize if that's a little bit weird. So, but let's jump in. Let's talk about this. This is oh my God, hi. This is a really wonderful time. It's a wonderful time, and you guys know how I am. I'm pretty positive. I really try and take us back to, the positivity of, hi there, Jerry, of what it is that we can do to get ourselves out of the situation. Hi, Britt, or how to work with the energies. That's really important to me that we do that. I think that, hi, Scooter, I think that is the sign of progress and evolution for us as a people. But this is certainly a time where I do not want to diminish the seriousness of Aries and Chiron in Aries. I don't want to diminish it at all because, hi Kay, hi Camila. One of the things that we're going to have going on, you guys, this is a time of, it's a heavy time. It's a time of pain. We're going to have to talk about pain. We're going to have to not only just talk about, but actually address pain that is coming up. Now, Chiron sits between the belt between Saturn and Uranus. Okay, so this is Saturn, who's grounding energy, right? Limitations, very serious energy. But also Uranus, who kind of has got his own thing going on, right? Like he likes to do his own thing, but this is the deal. So Uranus is also an outer planet, so it's global. This is a global thing. This is a global situation, right? So we're not only going to have these transformations and these, thank you, we're going to also have to deal with the pain and the wounds that we've got going on personally, but we're also going to see them in our society. So before I really jump in and start talking about some of these things, I want to preface everything right now with saying, you know that I try to be neutral on everything because whatever you believe, whatever you think, I don't care, to each their own. I'm here to be a neutral channel and advocate, but we're going to talk about some things that I definitely have come out of meditation with, have come out of obviously paying attention to the world with, and some of them are pretty controversial. So whichever side you stand on, know that I'm standing neutral. I'm simply channeling through some of the information that I've come up with, right? But first and foremost, let's talk specifically about what these dates are going to look like. So Chiron has already entered into Aries. Okay, this actually happened on the 17th of 2018 and is going to be happening all the way until 2027. Now, Chiron is going to back into Pisces from September of this year to February of next year, and then blow back forward, and then we get a little touching on, by the time 2026 comes, we're touching on Chiron in Taurus. So, but for the most part, we're getting a long, good set of years with Chiron and Aries. And again, with any of the slower moving energies, we have to be absolutely grateful that they are moving slowly and that we're getting a long time with them, because as humans, it takes us some time to actually deal and adapt and to make these changes. We can't just wake up and it's like, oh yeah, guess what? I'm totally fucked up. Like, fix it, right? Like if we could do that, we would just do that. We would just get on with it. But that is not the case. And especially these wounds. Because what Chiron is about is Chiron is seen as the wounded healer, right? He's been hurt. He's got these deep traumas, deep crisis, deep wounds, deep hurts, right? And because he suffered from them, he also knows how to heal other people because he's already been there, right? That's the benefit. It's like Chiron is our greatest pain, our biggest open wound, our greatest fear, the pain we don't even want to admit we have sometimes. And through working with it, acknowledging it, opening it, it becomes our greatest asset. It becomes what we actually bring to the table, right? Because here's the thing, you can be beautiful all day long and that's like, oh, congratulations about your face, you know, but if you can't actually take your life and what you've been through and give it away so that others can survive, so that things can change, we have missed the message, right? We have missed the message. So through Chiron, we get to be able to do that. Now, one of the other things that I really want us to be mindful of when we talk about Chiron, because sometimes I think we listen to astrology, and sometimes there are astrologers that really don't work with Chiron energy at all, and that's fine. But when they do, it can seem very like apocalyptic. You know what I mean? And this is huge, guys. Let's not downplay this at all. This is huge, but it is not all bad. We've got to get into this pain to come to the other side. So one of the other things I want you to keep in mind about especially Chiron and Aries is that in the story of Chiron, Chiron was a centaur. So he was born, you know, half horse, right? He has these deep wounds, all of this good kind of stuff. He goes searching, he's shunned, all of these other things until he's able through the deep searching and seeking to find other people to help and work with. But the very first wound that Chiron is inflicted with, if you know the story of this mythology, and if you don't, please look it up, it's absolutely beautiful, is that when Chiron was born, he was actually rejected by his mother, right? Because she was thinking as a human who like mated with the gods, and then she herself is like a horse, right, that she's just gonna have this like amazing sparkly kid, and it didn't come out that way. Like, what the did you expect, right? And so really the first shunning that Chiron receives is right from home. So that self-identity, that piece of who am I good enough, can I exist, my place in the world, what am I, that started right from home for Chiron, right? So that is something we need to keep in mind when we're thinking about Chiron, our biggest wound. In Aries, our identity, right? Who am I? What am I working towards? What am I doing? How do I value myself, right? Like, how do I stand for me? What are my actions? What are my responsibilities, right? Like, where am I doing that? Right? So that is something that's a theme that I want you to keep in mind as I can continue to talk and as you continue to experience listening to myself and other astrologers talk about this Chiron in Aries energy, that you're going to have a great reshaping to your own identity, right? And in the world, we're going to see some really nice reshaping to identities as well. And I want to back up for a second before I really delve into that. I want to talk about what this Chiron and Pisces business has been about, because we've had this for a while, and it's interesting because as far as the stays go, you know, as far as Chiron staying in a sign and all that good stuff, he stays the longest between Pisces and Aries, which is our great ender, our culminator, right, of Pisces, right, and our great beginner of Aries, right? So we're like ending and beginning things, and it takes a long time to do both of those. So we get a very long stay of both of these energies. But backing up for just a minute, let's talk about this Chiron in Pisces business, okay? So Chiron, our great wound, in Pisces, a water sign, right? Pisces is also our energy that is about fear, endings, institutions, subconscious, unconscious things. It's an energy that walks between the worlds, right? So very spiritual energy. The other part of Pisces that I think we have all watched come to the surface, not only in the world, but within ourselves, is this high need for creativity, art, music, play, children, our elderly, our babies, right? Like the creativity piece over the last 5-6 years for sure, I think has been thrusting to the surface for most of us, where it's like, I have got to be creative. I have got to create something. I have got to. Some of this, I genuinely believe, came out of this shaking up and stirring up of religious and faith ideas, because Pisces is also a very faithful, spiritual kind of energy, right? It is a religious energy, not the same as religious in terms of Jupiter, but religious in terms of faith, right? So many of us have been walking out of what our old traditional ideas of faith and religion and beliefs have been into, wait, where's the spirituality for me? Hold on, why am I not fitting in this box? And some people, what they've also been experiencing as well is, you know, maybe they really got away from a particular faith or belief pattern or something like that, and they were trying to make their way back to it. right? Because it's been about a healing, a very spiritual, creative healing that's been going on. So what that has looked like is all of those things: coming back to faith, needing to change faith, feeling like you needed to change faith, high creativity rising to the surface. I just cannot go to my job anymore. I need to create. Oh yeah, I want to go to my job, but I feel like I want to do music. I want to paint. I'm so in love with the elderly. We've had in the United States, at least, we have our largest generation of baby boomers alive, right? So our largest elderly population alive still. They're living longer. So we have this gigantic population of people who have become their own branch of study, and we've needed to learn to care for their needs. And how do we do that in society? That definitely came around while Chiron was in Pisces, right? Because that's a great wound we've had, right? And is it beautiful that they've stayed around? Phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. But wound here can also mean gap, right? A great gap we've needed to fill. How do we take care of these people? All of these kinds of things. Now, one of the other things that I really want to bring to the surface, because I think it's important in what we're talking about, and again, remember, I remain neutral, but I am obviously paying attention to the world, is during the Chiron in Pisces transit, one of the things that we had going on was this space between the worlds of what's real and what's not real, what's said and what's not being said, right? So in a lot of the things that we've had in the not being said in the world, especially the beginning part of that transit, which we're looking at, 2011-ish, we started to see people not really saying things, but it was causing problems, right? Then we started to see people, as the transit continued to move on, begin to say things that maybe looked a bit more fantasy, and it started to cause problems, right? And all of these things, I think, as we look at them in the world, come out of this space of the wound, right? I'm hiding. We're not being ourselves. We're not speaking up. We're not identifying as we want to, or we have some fantastic idea about what things should be, even if they don't have completely practical application yet. And we've experienced that in the world. One of the things that I definitely think about in terms of being wounded are any of our communities that are transgendered communities. We have seen this on a rise, right? The last time we saw Chiron moving towards Aries was back in the 60s, right? And so what was happening then? We had a population of people, we had women who were beginning to come a little bit more on the rise, right? They had had a timing where they weren't really speaking up for what they believed or perceived were the rights that they wanted. And so they were speaking up. And so what happened during that transit then is that women spoke up. This glorious book comes out. And if you don't know what book I'm talking about, I'm keeping it neutral to the best of my ability. It became like the code for a feminist movement at that time, right? And then that feminist energy and that feminine energy started to bump up against very male energy as Chiron moved into Aries. And we are going to see that again. We see it here. Now we've got this other population of people, our transgender folk, who have, the voice has been getting louder and louder and louder, right? And it's bonking up now, instead of bonking up against just this male idea or this patriarchal idea or just the system. It's actually bonking up against women, right? So this is a very interesting time to pay attention to how these dynamics are working, because ultimately what Chiron is going to seek to do is exactly what he did before, is to bridge the gap, bridge the wound of the conversation so that there can be equilibrium restored, right? So it's going to be very interesting to watch this pan out, you guys. The voice is already getting loud. And I'm going to tell you what, with Chiron and Aries, we've got a nice 9-year truck to go here. The conversation is not going to start out peacefully. It is not going to start out calm. This is a warring energy. But the fact is, if people can come to the table in a national way, in a personal way, acknowledging that they're fighting for a wound that they have, right? These ideas around gender that we have, around gender accepting that we have, are going to shift. Then the conversation can start to be productive, but I promise you in the beginning it is not going to be. Now, I think of a really great example of this during the Chiron in Pisces movement is this idea, like the it's not my fault mentality got very big during Chiron and Pisces, right? Like, it is not my fault. The victim's always right. Happy Earth Day. That didn't happen during Chiron and Pisces. I was just saying Happy Earth Day. But it was very much so this victim-y kind of energy. And as we've moved towards the end of that transit and we were getting closer and closer to Chiron coming to Aries, people were like, oh no, the victim is not always right, because the victim is not always the victim, right? This idea of, no, I will not step into what you're saying so that you can play the victim. You have to own your own responsibility around things. And we have watched this in the world. One of the greatest things that I actually thought was so beautiful, and I think later it'll turn into delicious conversation, was this conversation my boyfriend and I were actually having around a professor who's out in the world, and he was actually fired from his position at the university he was teaching at because he would not acknowledge a transgendered student by the pronoun they wish to be identified by. He said, no, you cannot make me do that. That is not what we have got going on until we, as a culture, decide that this is different. You do not get to take away my personal rights of speech. This was huge, you guys. If you did not read about this, make sure you get into the news, because this was phenomenal. This was profound. This was the idea of this institutionalized kind of idea, this authoritarian idea where someone speaks up and says, I want it to be this way, you have to do it this way, and another person says, you cannot take my rights. You cannot make it be so, right? So it was a really interesting, powerful, accountable energy to watch, right? But then what happened is it became twofold. If you remember this story, is that one, the professor on some levels and in some circles was, yeah, people were like, spot on, we agree. You can't make it so. We haven't, as a society or as a culture, defined this as something different. So no thanks, we're not doing that until we do. So he was very much so supported and idealized, right? And in some cases, that actually got very violent, where people who spoke out against him, people who supported him, actually got very violent, and he had to say, hey, that's not what I'm about. I'm just saying you're not taking my right of speech, right? Now, on the other side, what happened is the people he spoke out against, there was a whole swarm of people who supported the victim mentality, right? Who supported the idea of, yes, I say it has to be this way, so you need to do it this way, right? So in the end, we kind of supported this, like, the victim's always right kind of energy, but he has not gone for it yet. So it's a very interesting example of something we've got going on. Now, to jump off of that, kind of, I guess, a segue from that, with this Chiron and Pisces energy, one of the other things we found is that people were starting to open their eyes a little bit to what the institutionalized traditional way of healthcare and things like that have been, right? Some people closed their eyes, turned around and said, well, this is my only way of making a living. This is my only way of whatever. This is my only way, right? While other people, especially towards the end, remember, towards the end, we're moving towards this Aries energy where people are going, no, this is not the only way. I can be accountable for finding my own space here, because what will happen if we allow the institutionalized placements to be here is that we will, and I think we all have to pay attention to this regardless of what side you're on, or what side you identify with, I should say, we have to be mindful of where we're handing over our power. Pisces is a very passive energy. It will hand over its power to avoid confrontation. It will hand over its power out of fear, right? So in this, we have to be mindful. We have had to be mindful as the lights were slowly coming on as to where we were allowing governments to become into more of an authoritarian position, right? Because if they can come into a more authoritarian position, they can dictate to us what we need to say, who we need to be, what we need to believe, all of those kinds of things, right? So whether we have wanted to acknowledge this or not, and like I said, you guys, I am neutral. Wherever you stand, you stand. But whether or not we have wanted to acknowledge this, we have had to pay attention over the last definitely the last 6 years and definitely the last 2 years as to where we have handed off our own power. Where are we burying our heads in the sand, right? And sometimes what we're finding is that, especially this last year, a lot of people are like, I'm not burying my head in the sand. I'm not doing it. I am not. And what do we see? What do we see? The rise of, you're not taking my guns, right? We've got all of this kind of stuff happening. So it becomes a place, though, where as a culture, we have had to decide in our identity, especially, all over the world, but I want to speak to the United States because this is where I'm at. We have had to get ready to decide, which we're going to make up our minds here with this Chiron and Aries. When does the government, where is their line, right? When do they get to tell us what we're about, right? When do we get to decide our identity? Right? We get to decide, are we sticking next to the Constitution because we put that in place for a reason, or are we sticking next to ideals that are coming out of a very sensitive place, a very feeling place, but so far have no strong grounding in practical usage and are actually creating more drama than a productive conversation. Okay, so here's the other thing I was kind of thinking about that came out of meditation for me for sure, is looking at all of these different conversations. Of course, we've got the president, we've got the government, we've got gender things, we've got the feminism, and I use that in quotes because some of it's been very traditional, not progressive. We've had an attack on men. We've had several of these things going on. But in terms of kind of that hiding in the sand, victim, kind of put my head down, one of the things that very much so came out of my meditation was looking at the honesty as well. When Jupiter moved into Scorpio, I think it became very exposing because it really lit up this space where people didn't really want to have conversations. They were engaging in conversations, but they didn't really want to have them. They wanted that victim mentality to rise to the surface, people to kind of say, oh, poor you, poor me, poor whatever, even while they were acknowledging the poor choice that had been made, right? So it kind of became this place in this conversation where people who were not really trying to be a part of the conversation, a part of the healing, a part of the let's progress this forward, let's actually listen to the exchange of ideas, because the most intelligent exchange of ideas is a person who is willing to change their position based on actual facts presented to them, right? So the people that were not willing to participate that way were exposed. And what did we find out? It again, for me, came back to this idea of the victim mentality. And what was the victim mentality about? I'm hurt. I have a wound. I feel unheard. I want to be able to express myself. I want to be able to believe the way that I want to believe. I want to be able to not hurt. But the only way that I can get the attention here is to present a fight. And it's like, so many of these conversations that we've been listening to, I mean, I think many of us have listened to the news all over the world and gone, what? Right? Like they present their argument and you're like, what? How does, that's not even a straight line. That is like not even a squiggle, right? And so we've had to kind of go, no, wait a minute, some facts are skewed here, right? And not really having that listening. So I feel like that has been a phenomenal thing that has been exposed during the Chiron in Pisces transit. And it has not been all bad, okay? Because I want to say that it has not been all bad. It has brought people, because not everyone was suffering through this transit. They weren't suffering in the way of like deep suffering, pain, torment, all of these things. Some people actually would have been having their Chiron return when Chiron was in Pisces just this last year, this last few years. And for some of them, what it did is make them so uncomfortable on the inside that they brought that creativity to the surface, that they brought these healing ideas to the surface, that they chose to work with this Chiron energy and let go of old traumas, right? Because in some of these issues of faith during this Chiron and Pisces, some of the things we also found out about faith is that we had a lot of people coming to the surface saying, yes, within my chosen faith, religion, practice, household, I experienced a fair amount of sexual trauma, right? Especially once Jupiter got into Scorpio, we had people rising to the surface. And so for some people, this Chiron in Pisces, this return for them, or this energy, activated things in their chart that made them very productive. It brought their energy to the surface because they were willing to release. They were willing to dig in like fingers deep with lemon into that wound to go, I can't carry this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't fear this anymore. I have got to surrender this for my own peace of mind. I have got to surrender it. And what usually happened in the surrender is that they ended up giving it away. Whether it had been that people came into their life who needed that information or had been in that situation, or really for some people, it's like, you know, they got up and realized that they wanted to be of service in some way, shape, or form and teach other people, right? So it's just, it has been, I think it's been a mixed bag of tricks, but whatever has happened during the Chiron in Pisces, that wound was exposed. Conversation has had to come to the surface, right? So that we can get ready to have a new identity as we move forward. So I spoke a lot about the Chiron in Pisces and the Pluto Uranus energy that was also involved in there really helped to shake up things in our society. And so I want to kind of move on and talk about this Chiron in Aries energy that we're going to get to experience now because it's exciting. We're in it now. So let's talk about what this business is about. So Chiron in Aries. Again, you guys, I do not want to diminish this. Chiron is pain. Chiron is that wound. You cannot stick your head in the sand anymore. Now we are in our greatest warrior, right? Like our warrior energy is going towards one thing, and it is establishing a new identity. But it has to come out of this wound. What have you learned from your wound? If this is a Chiron return for you, you could be using the crap out of this time, right? You could take everything you have learned. You could take every way that you have hurt. You could take every decision. Look back over your life. Where are you sad? Where are you guilty? Where are you shameful? Where have you healed, right? Because it's not just all torture. You know, where have you done that? And get ready to give it away to somebody else. If you will give your life away to someone else, not in a way where you compromise and you people please, right? Where you say, this is my identity. I'm a person who has been raped, hurt, trauma, fill in the blank, and I know how to help another person come to the other side of that. You will have the most brilliant spiritual experience of your life. You will watch that wound turn into gold. It will turn into gold if you just mine it and give it away. Allow someone else to benefit from what you have learned. Now, if you're coming into this return of Chiron and you have not healed, it will become evident. There will be no mistakes for you that it's not healed. And your job is to go to the fear. Go to the pain, and Jupiter is in Scorpio, getting ready to be in Sagittarius. Don't go alone. Grab a battle buddy and get your ass in there because that is the way through it, right? Okay. Here's the other part about this energy for me, right? Even if this is not your Chiron return, Chiron in Aries can bring things to the surface of that, like I said, that identity, your self-worth. Remember, Chiron was rejected by his mother at first, and when how do you deal with that? Right? Here you are, you're a kid, you're just born, you're just trying to do a lifetime, and the very first person who you have spent the closest relationship to rejects you, then continues to reject you, and you relive that wound over and over and over again, right? And that's the understanding of the wound of self-esteem, right? Of what have you been basing your identity on, right? Have you had Chiron in the 9th house and being educated, being worldly, being philosophical, being right all the time is something that you have based your life on, and you're finding out that you really don't know crap, right? You've got a lot to learn, right? Could that reshape your self-esteem, right? Because what Chiron in Aries is also going to ask you to do is to be responsible. Own your shiitake. Own it. Get those tacos in a row, and it is no one's fault that they are not in a row, right? It's not even maybe even your fault that they're not in a row. Maybe you've been doing the very best that you absolutely could with what you have, right? But it's time to level up, right? It's time to level up. What are you putting your energy into? Where is your action? Where is your accountability? Own your junk, right? There is just no way around it. You have to go where the pain is at. And here's the thing that I have found as I continue to work with people and really delve, especially over this last couple months, getting ready for this, into this Chiron energy, is that people are still kind of in this position, not everyone, of course, where they're like, no, I don't know. I've been really doing a whole bunch of healing, so I don't know. I don't really think I have any pain. I promise you, you have pain. I promise you that you're wondering who you are, even if you've just had this big, beautiful life reset. God help some of you who have had Uranus and Aries in that first house, or if you are an Aries and you've had Uranus in your sign, you have most certainly had a life reset, and that has left you at a place with a lot of unknowns. And the unknowns are okay. It is okay to not be okay. It is okay to be ungrounded. It is okay to go, okay, wait a minute, where do I need to go next? Oh my God, what is this going to look like, right? It is okay to have those things. So because what Chiron's going to offer you here is an opportunity to get wise, right? Like you have a chance to get wise. You're going to have an opportunity to have lessons confront you right in your face, right? You're going to be able to very clearly, I think, see in areas of your life what you have accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, right? What did you believe that this journey was supposed to look like? With Chiron and Aries, have you believed that you've had this very high element of control over your life, right? Like just because you decided that's it, right? Oh no, you are under spiritual energy as well, and maybe you haven't fully learned to work with that. So you have this idea, this illusion of control, right? Like that's why we love clocks. That's why we love time, because we can be like, oh, if I can tell you I will be there at noon, then I have this illusion that I have control of some things, right? So that could be something that's definitely breaking down for you as well. Now, I do want to give a couple cautions here that I think are important when we have an energy like this move into a new sign. And since it's moving from Pisces into Aries, and it is in Aries, one of the things I think we have to be mindful of is remember, Aries is a warring energy, okay? It is an impulsive, aggressive, warring energy. So in the world, we will likely see, we've got, 9 years with this gig, we will likely see some kind of warring going on. And this is hand-to-hand, fist-to-cuff kind of combat, right? This could be happening in your own life, depending on what's triggering, but certainly in the world, we will see a good amount of warfare. I told you about the warring between the conversations before things reach some equilibrium, but certainly some warring happening. But other things that I continue to be mindful of is that this is a time too where it could be something in your health that is definitely exacerbated, right? It's you're put under a health challenge and you've got to do something about it. And the things that I think about are the head, right? Aries rules over the head, the brain, eyes, all of those things. So, this is a time where I would tell you, be mindful of your medical care. We're talking about Chiron here. We're talking about a physical wound that could actually be happening as well. Do you have, is there something going on, and maybe you have a brain bleed that comes from it, right? I don't want to sound super, like I said, apocalyptic, and I want to be scaring anybody. That is not the point here, right? You need to study your chart. You need to be mindful of your own well-being. But these are things we do think about. The head, the eyes, is your vision getting different? Do you have issues there? Mentally, what's going on for you, right? But one of the things I do definitely consider is head injuries. And some of the things that I consider when I think of head injuries are motorcycles, right? My boyfriend and I ride motorcycles, right? So head injuries there. Do you have a helmet? Do you have a good helmet? When's the last time you checked your helmet? When's the last time you checked your gear? Anything that protects your head, right? Sports. Right? We got sports out there. We've got rugby, which I just think is phenomenal, and football. Let's not forget football. We've got football where we're crashing our heads into other people. So we want to be mindful of protecting the head, paying attention to the head. Okay? Things like that I think will be very, very important. Now, one of the only other things that I want to speak to with this Chiron coming into Aries is that it will be time for you to teach. And I'm sorry, you guys, I think some of you have said we're kind of losing our connectivity here. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get back in here. If not, catch me on the video. Catch me outside. Okay, she's a trip, by the way. Anyway, is that this will be a time to teach. Chiron in Aries is going to set you up for a time to teach. Now, you've learned a lot with Chiron being in Pisces. So, of course, you'll have that information to give away, right? You'll have that information to share with other people. What did you learn? Right? And you'll have your own identity to be standing up for, right? You've had maybe these religious, political affiliations and beliefs. Are you listening to new information? Allow someone to teach you too, so that you can advance your perspective, advance your knowledge as to why you have that perspective, and then prepare to run towards that, right? Your self-esteem cannot get greater. It cannot come up if you're in the position of the victim and you're trying to pull other people down while not listening to information. Your self-esteem, your value, your who you actually are cannot come up if you're not willing to consider facts and then make your own opinion. If you give your power away, it's given away. It is very, very hard and years of work to get it back. So this Chiron in Aries is certainly going to it's certainly going to put you in a position to look at that wounded self, your wounded identity. You know, I know for me, one of the things, I'll just share this with you, is that some of that Chiron energy is, oh, I thought it was going to look like this. And even though it's beautiful that it looks like something different, I'm still reforming my own identity around some things in my life, right? I'm re-looking at, oh, what do I actually think about that? How do I actually want to navigate that? I was absolutely convinced, you guys, even being as positive as I am, I was absolutely convinced that, you know, this was it. I think I was just going to do life alone, and that was kind of going to be the thing, because there was just never going to be this person who was going to be able to keep speed with Stormie Grace. And let me tell you, these men were dropping like flies, because I do understand I'm a lot to keep up with, right? And so, and about a year ago, my head kind of popped out of the sand in that Pisces energy, and I went, now wait a minute, hold on, something's happening. I have become spiritually fit enough to understand and hear a different message, to hear my guidance differently. And that's not the case. And guess where Chiron was for me in Pisces? It was in my 7th house. I had a deep wound of beliefs to allow the universe to walk with me and uncover my outdated beliefs that there was just never going to be someone for me, that there was never going to be someone that I could be enough for. There was never going to be someone that could keep up with me, right? Like, it just was never going to happen. And the biggest belief that I found, that core level belief at the bottom, is that something bigger, as I identify it as God, sometimes I call it Great Spirit, sometimes I call it universe, whatever you call it, did not have my back. And genuinely, because I had Pisces in the 7th house, did not want me to be in a relationship. I just needed to be in these delusional relationships where I was always the other person, and it just was never going to be allowed to work out, right? And let me just tell you guys, I'm just giving you all my tea today. Okay, so what happened in that is that, I'm going to get emotional, is I had the most great and grave fall apart I have had in my entire life. I mean, the fingers were in the wound, and it was very real. And what happened is that I went through a situation, and when I was going through that situation, here's where I was grateful for my spiritual fitness even before that, is that all I could hear was a very quiet voice saying, just don't let go of my hand. Just don't let go of my hand, no matter what. Ooh, see, I'm getting the vapors, y'all. Okay. And I understood that what was going to happen is I was going to absolutely fall apart. And by fall apart, it didn't mean my whole life was going to crash down, because if you looked at my life, you'd have thought, holy crap, this girl has got it going on. Everything is together, right? But fall apart on the inside, which meant that this idea and this belief that I had, I literally just fall out of my life, and it was ripping with me these pieces of my soul that I can't really explain unless you've been there. And all I knew is that my job was to not let go of this bigger thing's hand, to stick close to my spiritual teacher who watched me walk through it and helped me. And I'm talking, when I say help me walk through it, I'm not talking about we had a 30-minute conversation once a month, like daily. I was calling her and I said, I can't remember what I do in my life. I can't remember how to get up and take care of these beautiful children that I have. I can't remember how to make these videos that set my whole soul on fire. I feel so empty. And she just kept telling me, and that quiet thing kept saying to me, just don't let go, keep walking. And the point to that is that right behind that, right after the crash, you guys, right after the crash, I knew, I was like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be alone. I don't know what you're doing up there, over there, I do not know. But it's not leaving me alone. You have got somebody coming for me. Ooh, I got to get right. Let me get this hair right. Let me get this heart right. But I was different, you guys. And then the universe did the most amazing thing. A man who had been my friend, only my friend, for 6 years, and he had said, I don't want children. I don't want to be married. I don't believe in this. And I was like, well, let me just love this crazy person, right? Because I just thought he was so crazy. But then over 6 years, I got to see his heart, and I just genuinely loved him as a friend. The universe took this Aries, right? Because he's an Aries, and Uranus popped into Aries, and put us together. And all of a sudden, he had this idea and this vision of what his woman and what his life was supposed to look like. We took one look at each other one day over coffee, and we're like, oh shit. Oh, here it is. And we haven't been apart since, right? And it's healthy, and it's good, and it's spiritually fit, and these children are wrapped up in it, and our families are wrapped up in it, and we have the level of intimacy that I have with this other human being had to come from that deep ass wound, y'all. I mean, when I tell you, like, it is a beautiful love story, but when I tell you what it took to get there, I'm not kidding, and I didn't plan that out. I genuinely believed I was just going to go on being the best astrologer, person, human mother that I could. And when Chiron got there, it got really, really real, okay? But on the other side, what it looks like is so absolutely, absolutely delicious. And I got a new identity, right? So now with Chiron here in Aries, I'm in this partnership that I've been in for quite some time now. And we're both re-identifying. We're both looking at our values. We're both re-looking at, how do I feel about this? How do I step up to this? Right? What does it mean to actually take care of someone long term? Right? Because he too thought he was going to die alone, and I'm like, haha, I'm never leaving. So my whole point in this is that the re-identification of self, looking at the wounds that you're going to shed, if you're a man out there, or if you have strong issues with your, or have had previously strong issues with male interactions, the men of our communities are going to get different. They have to redefine their image, their identities, right? We've got women out there right now who are having to re-identify their image because there's been such a high attack on, we're trying to figure out what genders are. So if you want to be an openly straight female, there's been some attack there, right? So it's going to be a very interesting time at watching the new identities that come forth, you guys. And the depth of what's coming for you and the depth of the interactions you're going to have, I can't tell you how brilliant and beautiful they are. What I can tell you is that they're going to happen. We're going to see some ish in the world. I'll try and keep you posted, updated, talk about this more often, because this will not be the last time we talk about Chiron and Aries. And in fact, I hope you join me in May for $3 Thursdays, because we're going to talk about Chiron in Aries through the houses. And I have also put out, under this video, you guys will see it, a very limited amount of videos talking about your personal Chiron, and actually I will be giving you tips and suggestions to make it through, and they'll be all based off of your chart as well. So I'm looking forward to it, but there are a limited number of those, because I'm gonna go in on those, and that's gonna take some time. So all of that stuff is down below, but I do hope that you continue to join me. Thank you for your love and your support, you guys, as I change and you change, and we get to do this together, and we get to hopefully change our perspectives and step out into the world and help our world change as well as gently as can be done, right? So I love you guys. Click in the description box down below. Definitely come join me $3 Thursday. Nope, $3 Thursdays you can do on the phone. There's a call-in number for that as well. You can connect on the phone. You can connect on the phone, like on the phone with an actual phone call. I know that's weird. You can also connect laptop, which there's multiple ways to connect in $3 Thursdays. And then the video appointments that I have, those are just a pre-recorded video that I will record based on your chart. I'll break down all this good jazz, and then I send it to you, and it's yours to keep. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that my alert seemed to have worked today. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm just trying to be real. But it seems to have worked out. So I love you guys. I'm going to end this video maybe. And I will see you guys on the flip side. Bye, everyone.